Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I actually have makeup on today. Are we shocked or what? So I'm gonna go through my favorite books of 2024. I know this is a little late, but I decided I kind of wanted to do it anyways. I read a total of, I can't remember if it was like 60 something this year. I set my goal to, I think like, was it 50? I think I actually set my goal back down this year to 25. I just don't want to feel pressured. I will 100% read more than 25 books, but I just don't like the feeling of feeling rushed through books. So I want to try and take it a little bit slower and enjoy what I'm reading this year. So I have 15 books to show for you guys that I loved this year, and then I have a couple honorary mentions. So I'm excited to start. I think I'll start with some fantasy. I have like 5 romance books, and then everything else is pretty much romantasy. So yeah, but I'll start with one of my favorite books of the year for me was Trust of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I am not going to go over all the synopsis of all of these books because there's just too many, and in this video it would be way too long. So if you're interested in them, you know, you can just look it up on Goodreads, Google, whatever. I loved this book. I really love Brandon Sanderson's writing anyways, and this book is one of my favorite books I've read by him. I've only read, I think, 4-ish books by him, but I'm obsessed with this book. It's on the water. I love books that are based on like ships, like the ocean, the sea, piratey books. I love books like that. I just read Fable, loved it. So yeah, this is a top book for me. Like, this is like 6 stars for me. I thought this was such a fun, it's almost like a cozy like fantasy, but it's not quite cozy. Like, there's still a lot that happens. I wouldn't consider it like Legends and Lattes or something, but I loved this book. So yeah, and it's a pretty easy, fast read, to be quite honest, not very big. Some Brandon Sanderson books are like really chunky. This one's not that big. So have that one on there. The next book I have that actually, I'm going to talk about this one because it really took me by surprise. I did not expect to like this book as much as I did. And that is The Wren in the Holly Library. First off, this edition is absolutely gorgeous, but I bought this on a whim from Walmart. And the only reason I bought it was because I think it said something about monsters. Yeah, it said monsters. And I was like, I don't know that I read very many monster books. I read a lot of like fae books, but not monster books. I loved this book. I loved it. I cannot wait for the second book to come out. I'm 100% already like looking forward to it. I pre-ordered it. Yeah, if you need a good monster book, I just feel like this is a good one because I don't feel like there might be a lot of monster books out there and I just don't like find them and read them. But like the last like monster book I remember reading is The Savage Song by V. Schwab. So, and that's been a long time, so I may be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I just really enjoyed this book. I really became invested with the characters. I like binged this book in like a couple days. I could not stop reading it. It was so much fun to me. Maybe it's not everybody's taste, but I was obsessed with it. Okay, the next book that I think a lot of people loved this year is Heartless Hunter. I was a little bit late getting to this book, but I decided to pick it up because it's on Kindle Unlimited, and I flew through this. This was so fun. Like a witch book, a witchy fantasy book. Like, they did it so well. They didn't make it too, I don't want to say, it wasn't like a dark witchy fantasy book, and I appreciated that because I don't know that I would love a really dark witchy book, but I love this, and I've pre-ordered the second one. This is going to be a duology. I think The Wren in the Holly Library is going to be a duology as well. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, this book you will fly through. It's a lot of fun. I can't wait to see what happens in the next book. You know, they always leave you on a big cliffhanger, and yeah, this was a great book. So I 100% recommend this book, especially if you're like kind of new to fantasy. And obviously if you like kind of books that have witches in them, but love this book. So good. All right, the next book is Reckless by Lauren Roberts. So I really like Powerless, but I don't know if this is going to be a controversial saying, but I actually preferred Reckless more. I liked it better. I just had a fun time with this book. I know a lot of people, some people didn't like it because they thought there was just like way too much back and forth and like banter going on, but I love that this was set like in the desert. That is so much fun to me. And honestly, I mean, I like the first book because it's kind of like a Hunger Games-esque book, but to be completely honest, like there are so many books that have like trials in them, and this book obviously didn't have that, the second one. And I like that. And I had a really good time reading it. I think sometimes it just depends on when you choose to read a book, right? Like if you don't read the book until, if you read a book right when it comes out and you're not in the mood for it, you may not enjoy it as much. Like I enjoyed this book so much, but there's been other books I've read that I probably should have waited till I was in the mood to read, but I wanted to be like, you know, I wanted to catch up and be with everybody when they were reading it. And I may not have enjoyed it as much. So I love this book. I read it at the perfect time for me. Loved it. The next book that I read this year is I finally read The Serpent and the Wings of the Night. I really, really, really love this book. Vampires. I am not like, I kind of think that I think to myself I love vampire books, but then I read one, like I read Immortal Dark, and like I just didn't love it. It just wasn't my favorite. I also read An Education in Malice. I didn't love it. Like I don't know. So I'm like, sometimes I don't like vampire books, but I loved this. The second book though, I didn't love as much. I mean, I still had a great time in the world. Six Scorched Roses, the novella, is amazing though. So you definitely should read that if you've read these. But I love this. I thought it was so good. It was so much fun, very fast paced. Oh, I love this world. All right, the next one I have is What the River Knows. This book I read at the beginning of the year, and I love this. I thought it was so fun. I love anything that has to do with like Egyptian history or anything that's like an Indiana Jones / like mummy mashup or anything. I love archaeology thing. Anything like that is so much fun to me. So this I had a fantastic time reading. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great time. I have the second one. It is a duology. I have not read it yet, but I do plan on reading it this year. So, obsessed. So good. And then, let's move on to Fear the Flames. This is by Olivia Rose Darling. I know that this book came out originally as an indie book, because she was an indie author, and then it's now professionally published. Or is that the right word? I think so. I had a great time with this book as well. I don't think I liked it as much as I thought I would, because I didn't give it 5 stars, but it was definitely really close. I'm excited to read the second book. I can say the original book was really, really, really thick, and then when they republished it, they shortened it, and I am very glad that I read the shortened version. I don't know that I would have enjoyed it as much with how thick it was to begin with, because I think there would have been too much fluff in there, because I felt like there was a little bit in here like that just didn't need to be in here, but I still loved it. I love the dragons. I like the characters. I had a really fun time with it. Also, very interesting ending. Very interested to see where it goes, because it's kind of, I don't want to give anything away, but like, I don't know, it's just an interesting ending. So, but this was a really fun read. If you love dragons, you'll probably like this book, because I love books that have dragons in them. I think they're so fun. Okay, the next book I'm going to talk about is Brandon Sanderson, Warbreaker. Yes, another Brandon Sanderson book. I love this. This was I think I read this at the beginning of the year, and it definitely took me a little while. I read it and I also listened to the audiobook at the same time. This was so good. It's so well written. It's beautifully written. I love the characters. I can still remember the way that they sounded in the audiobook, their names. Like, I thought this was such an interesting book. The magic system is so crazy. It takes a really long time for you really like to grasp your mind around it, but it's very intriguing. I loved this book. 5 stars for me. It was so good. So good. This one and Trust the Emerald Sea are my 2 top favorite Brandon Sanderson books. So, next is Metal Slinger. I had to put this in here because I did not give this 5 stars, but I really had a fun time reading it. And if I have a fun and a good time reading a book and I'm just enjoying myself, then I feel like it's something, I think about it, then I need to recognize that it's like one of my top books of the year. And I had a great time. I read this at the end of the year. I was kind of in a reading slump and it was the perfect time for me to read this. I flew through it. I think I read it in like 2 days. It was fun. I know some people complain about it not being very well written. There's a lot of like errors with, you know, with spelling or grammar or whatever. I just don't care. I enjoyed the book so much. I had a fun time reading it, and that's all that mattered to me. So if you like books that take you on a really fun adventure through across the sea, on horseback, it was just so much fun. It was so fun. So I'm very excited to read the next book in the series, because I do have to say, the ending though, I have a very, very weird, like, I don't even know what to say. The ending just really threw me, and I've heard some people say they don't really feel like it went with the book. I kind of agree. I feel like it was kind of out of nowhere, like left field. I understand that they wanted a big, like, you know, a big plot twist. There we go. Can't get that out. At the end, I just think it was almost like too big, and it was just almost way out of left field. But I'm just interested to see where second book goes. Like, where do you even go from here? I mean, really, how do you even move on from that ending? It's kind of crazy. The next book I have is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I started this book when I first started hearing about it on my Kindle, and I started reading it, and then I stopped about 20% through, and I was like, I'm just not feeling it. Like, I'm just not getting into it. It's also a pretty chunky book, okay? It's not like a little, you know, it's not super little. So I'm reading it, I'm not loving it. I'm like, maybe I'm just not gonna like it. I started finally reading it again, and I loved it. I thought it was so good. I don't think I gave it 5 stars. I think I maybe gave it 4.5. But I'm excited to see where the series goes. I don't know if this is going to be a series or a duology or what, but I'm excited to see what happens. And I ended up really falling in love with the characters and just enjoying the story, but it took me a while to get into it, which is funny because it is set like in a desert kind of setting at the beginning, and I love that kind of thing. Like, I love books that are set in the desert, but I don't know, it just took me a while to get into it. It was like once we got out of the desert into basically this Fae world, it took me a while to get into it. So yeah, but I think it was really good. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun read again for me. That's another thing that matters. So, all right, we are on to romance books. So I'm going to talk about 2 books at the same time because I don't want this video to be too long. But I have 2 Emily Henry books. I finally got on my Emily Henry journey this year. I've read People Meet on Vacation and Beach Read and Book Lovers. People Meet on Vacation's back there. I didn't love People Meet on Vacation. I'm glad I read it. It was a fun rom-com-y book. I love, you know, books like that. But these 2 were definitely my favorite. But out of the 2, Book Lovers takes the cake for me. I read Beach Read first. Really had a good time reading it. I read it in Florida. I really loved it, but after I read this and then I read Book Lovers, 100% loved this one way more. This is just totally more up my alley. So this is my favorite, definitely, Emily Henry book so far. I am getting ready to start Funny Story, and I need to read A Happy Place still. And then obviously I'll be caught up on all of her books, except for maybe the books she wrote at the beginning of her career. I don't really know, but like the main books, that's kind of what I'm focusing on. And then I have her new book pre-ordered. So yeah, I mean, they were good. I think Emily Henry books are a nice like mind cleanser. I think that if you need something fun to read and you want to be in a fun setting, they're very atmospheric. They're very cozy. They do deal with like, you know, deeper issues and emotional things, but at the same time, they're still really lighthearted and they're still a really fun read. So I definitely recommend Emily Henry. I didn't think I was going to love her as much as I do, and here we are. Okay, another book that took me by surprise that I didn't think I was going to love as much as I ended up loving is The Love of My Afterlife by Christy Greenwood. This was so much fun. I had such a good time reading this. I bought this on a whim, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. Like, you know, I don't know if it's for me. I read this so fast, and it was so good. It's so fun. Definitely more like another like rom-com-y book, but it deals with some deeper issues as well. But it's still fun to read, and I had a great time, and I really enjoyed the characters. I do have to say, at the very end of the book, I feel like it could have been sped up a little bit. Sometimes we get to the ending of books and I'm like, okay, let's just speed it up a little. But yeah, I loved it. I thought it was such a unique take on a book. I've never read a book like this before, so a very fun one. The next two, and these are last ones until I go to my like honorary mentions. So I have two Ashley Poston books. First, I read The 7-Year Slip last year. Loved it. Ashley Poston's one of my favorite authors. I don't care what anybody says. Her books hold such special meaning to me, and I connect to every single one of them. They're so good. So I read The Dead Romantics this year. I like this book. This is not my favorite Ashley Poston book. The 7-Year Slip is my favorite. And then A Novel Love Story, and then this one. Also already pre-ordered her new book coming out this year because she's an autobiography author for me. But this book, I listened to this book on audiobook while I was painting the kitchen, and I don't know how many times I cried. This book is so emotional. Definitely trigger warnings. If you are going to read this, I would check into that. But it's so good. Her quotes and the way that she writes is beautiful. And I highlight so much in her books. And I just resonate with her books so much. They're so beautiful. They're so beautiful. The stories are always so fun. So beautiful, but fun at the same time. Like, it's just, oh, it's such a good book. But then she came out with A Novel Love Story this year, or last year. And some people didn't like this book. Let me just tell you guys, I loved this book. I was in just all of this book. I had such a good time being transported into this world. I cannot wait to read this book again. I loved it. This is like a 5-star, 6 stars for me. Obsessed with this book. I thought about this book a weird amount after I read it. And I see some people who are like, oh, 3 stars, whatever. And I'm like, listen, everyone has their own opinion, and that's great. But for me, this book just hit, and it just hit right. So I am a big Ashley Poston fan. I think her writing is just absolutely gorgeous. So I love it. And also, this cover is kind of fun to me. Some people hate it. I like it. I think it's fun. All right, so my 3 honorary mentions are, I have 2 books by Meg Schaefer that I read this year. I read The Wishing Game. This book took me by surprise. I literally had no clue really what this was about, and I read it and I was like, this book was so good. This was so fun, and the concept of it is so different. If you've not read a Meg Schaefer book, you should read this. Like, it's 100% worth your time. It's not a very long book, but it is really good, and it's just fun. It's a fun book. And then the next one I have by her is The Lost Story. I enjoyed this book too. It's kind of like a Chronicles of Narnia book. That's what it's, I think, loosely based off of when she wrote it. And I loved this book. I thought it was so much fun. You just get lost in like a magical world, and yeah, I definitely think the beginning of it took a while to get started, like to get going. But then once we got to the magical world, oh, it was so much fun. Love that. And then the last book that I'm going to talk about is actually one that I don't know that a lot of people are going to talk about this book, but when I read this, I loved it, and I just really enjoyed it. It's pretty, there's no spice in it. You know, it's a very simple book for the most part. Like, it's not a crazy, like, smutty book or anything, but, and I don't really love smutty books, but Dungeons and Drama. This is just a fun read. It's definitely a lot more young adult, but I loved it. I love anything nerdy anyways, so this was a fun read for me because it talks about Dungeons and Dragons, it talks about video games, it talks about comics, and game stores and all that stuff. And like, I love that. And this was so fun. And I already have her second book. It's by a different it's about different characters, but it's still with like a nerdy kind of like rom-com book. And I had such a good time with this. So it was fun. I enjoyed it. I didn't think that I was gonna like it as much as I did. And after I got done reading it, like once again with other books, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. It was so much fun. So, but that is my books for, my favorite books for 2024. Sorry, I'm out of breath. I am pregnant, so it's kind of rough talking. I like get out of breath so easily now. But yeah, those are my books for 2024 that I loved, my favorite ones. And I hope that you guys found something that you're interested in reading. I know I didn't talk about every single one of them and what they're about, but it would just take me a long time to do. And we don't have time for that. There was a lot of books to show. So next time, maybe I'll do like a monthly book wrap up or something if I have time. I am going to film a books I want to read, 25 books I want to read in 2025. Because there are 25 books that I've written down that I specifically want to get to in 2025. And yeah, they're just like the top ones. I've had them on my TBR for too long. This year also, one of my goals is to focus more on my physical TBR. These are like my romance books, and then we have some like thrillers. I've read the top shelf, I've not read, and then down I've read, but all my fantasy books, there's more books downstairs. I have so many on my physical TBR I need to get to. So it's one of my priorities this year is to buy less books and read more of what I already own. Which is good because I spent so much money on books last year and I haven't even made a dent in them, you know? So, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and please catch my next video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks. Bye.